Welcome to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower, brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/your20-minute podcast. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Now, here's your host, David Brower.
Thanks, Allan. This is David Brower with your 20-minute podcast. Our special guest today is Hilary Jastrum, and she is on a roll. She has so much passion to support entrepreneurs in all kinds of different ways with the inception of a program called SickBiz. And I am fascinated by what you're doing with that. Hi, Hilary, and welcome to Colorado from Minnesota. I think I'm warmer than you today.
You are warmer than me. I had to open my office door. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, you bet. You bet. Looking forward to it. So tell us about, I guess you want to start with SickBiz and how that came about?
Yes, absolutely. SickBiz is my baby. So, actually is a baby. So it's our baby nonprofit that we established last July, but we incorporated in September. And the onus is on supporting chronically ill and disabled entrepreneurs because I am a chronically ill entrepreneur. And so, and I was put there rather suddenly by the onset of a rare neurological disorder called transverse myelitis. It's an ugly, despicable sister to MS.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's very debilitating. And I had been working outside of the home, and I had a dream job. I was web content admin for home furniture. And
wow.
So I helped to, in their marketing department, I did all their social media, and I would get on the floor and take pictures and work on campaigns, and it was just wonderful, and then I became sick. It was a creeping illness. It started in my feet, and I started to feel like they were losing sensation or falling asleep. And then it felt like I couldn't dry myself off after a shower. And that progressed to weakness, where one day I said, I don't think I can stand up. And we moved into 7 months of vertigo.
Wow.
And I couldn't walk down the hallway. Yeah, it was a very public display, which was both humbling but also extremely vulnerable. And you just really lose all of your boundaries at that point. It didn't, it didn't matter who was walking by. I'd grab onto you, and you'd become my human cane.
Sure. Well, and that had to be terrifying as well.
Oh, it's horrible.
Right.
Horrible. And,
right.
And they would speak, the neurologist, I'm on my third neurologist now, which I really like him. He's a good guy. But I do want to encourage people to shop around if you're not happy with your doctor. It's vitally important. But they would speak in cloaked terms,
sure.
Neoplasm, and, and I would focus on remembering that. And so I could run home and Google it and see what it meant, and read that it meant potentially a spinal tumor in the context they were using the terminology. So and then I was totally freaked out.
Well, yeah.
And, this went on for 5 months because they couldn't figure out what was wrong and, what was going on and whatever. You don't naturally gravitate towards a rare neurological disorder. You kind of go more towards garden variety things.
Absolutely
first.
right. Absolutely right. And like anything else in life, and of course this is exaggerated because of the truth, but anytime you run into anything that is unknown, that's like the biggest challenge ever, because you just don't know what you don't know, and you don't know where to go, and you don't know if there's a way to help. There's lots of ways not to. I mean, it's just, that's always the biggest challenge to me personally, is the unknown piece. And then when they figure it out and they tell me, okay, well, let's going to do this. All right, it still sucks, but at least I have a plan,
Yes, that's exactly right. Because you don't know if you're looking at something that's treatable, if you're looking at something that's terminal.
Yeah.
You don't even have any idea how to begin to process what's happening. And the fact that the doctors, can't make a diagnosis So I got sick around April Fool's Day, which I don't think is very funny at all.
At all.
It's like that was the worst joke.
Oh, my gosh. Well, the good news is Easter is on April Fool's this year, so there you go.
Oh, see, and then we always look up, right? Yeah.
Wow.
Diagnosis came in September, early September, and then I was out of work by that following January. I was on short-term disability for a while and then had tried to even work from home, but Home Furniture was wonderful. They wheeled in a recliner and put it in my cubicle so that I could work, and nothing, I just couldn't fulfill the job requirements anymore.
Sure.
And, and I have nothing but love and gratitude for every single person who was there. There was so much compassion. And nobody had ever seen, like this sick circus animal on display.
Yeah.
It was unprecedented. So I had people coming out of the woodwork that just were so caring and so loving, and they would do research, and they would come over and just hug me, or they would bring me little gifts or food or what.
Wow.
And even the CEO was like, we don't know what to do, but we're here for you and we care. And I had been on a very good track there.
Well, and you know what? All of that speaks volumes about you, because people don't respond to people that way unless the recipient is truly, truly something special. And you obviously have exemplified that in your caring for all of them, and you allowed them to bring that back to you, which not everybody can pull that off,
Well, I just try not to be an a-hole every day. That's
there you go. I see that you got a T-shirt?
Yeah. That would be an awesome
That'd make a great
wouldn't it?
T-shirt, man. I'm just saying. So during the course of by the way, your energy, humor, laughter, it just rocks. It just permeates your personality, and what a gift that is. So I'm thrilled to be able to talk to you just for that reason. So it makes it fun. Makes it fun. So in your course of this battle, did you find anybody else on the planet that had what you had?
I did. I found it's the largest Facebook group now, and I'm friends with multitudes of people. So this is a transverse myelitis Facebook group, and what people don't understand is there are two forms of transverse myelitis. And David, I got lucky because I have chronic transverse myelitis. So I don't have new lesions. So I have a lesion in my thoracic spine, which interrupts the electrical signal. So basically I short circuit all day long.
Gotcha.
Which causes, so it causes burning and tingling and numbness in the extremities. But it's also ground-breaking fatigue, because your body is so tired on a cellular level, just incredibly tired from trying to push those signals out. So, yes, I did find other people, but there's another kind, and that is the acute version. The acute version can paralyze and even kill people within hours.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
It's devastating.
I got the wrong kind of goosebumps on that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And it's so rare that there's no funding.
Huh.
It's so rare that people don't understand it. It's not one of the things so it's often mistreated also. Don't.
Yeah, sure. If you don't find the right doc who has the right experience and knows what you're talking about, it's just a crapshoot,
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. It's so you are not given the kind of protocol treatment, and so then you lose out on, and the treatment, there really isn't any treatment, but what they do is they can give you high doses of steroids in the hospital. They do it via IV or even at your home, and this it doesn't minimize your symptoms, but it shortens the length of time that you have them. So you're still going to have whatever damage would come from whatever your particular physiological circumstances,
Sure.
but you will not suffer as long to such a degree. And they call that being in a flare. And the flare will knock you out.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's a weird thing. I should have played the lottery instead.
I know, right? Yeah, you would have had much better odds. My gosh. So how did all this lead to SickBiz?
Well, so my formula for surviving was, I will say my marketing strategy was groveling.
There you go. Yeah. Understood.
Yes. I knew I could work. I come from a background, it's a pretty skid row background, and so I knew I could work. That's what I always had going for me, coming out of extreme poverty, living in a very in a neighborhood that was pretty sketchy. So I always knew I could work, though, and I started working at a young age, and that's what I relied on. And then I found there was almost a release in work, because it takes you out of your personal suffering, and it channels even your sensations are channeled towards something else. And so it's kind of fooling your body. Yes, you're still experiencing what you're going through. But for example, okay, so sometimes my throat will ice over and it will feel like I have trouble breathing, and then I also have some nerves in the diaphragm area that are affected. So sometimes it can feel like I actually can't breathe that well.
Sure.
But I might fool myself by putting in a throat lozenge that I know gives me that mentholated feeling anyways, and so it delivers that expectation, and it fools my body.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's like when you use a TENS unit. If I'm having extreme deep muscle aches, for example, you put the TENS unit on, which are little sticky patches that deliver shock signals, and that fools your body. So it's all of this and it's the same thing. Entrepreneurship for chronically ill and disabled entrepreneurs is the same dang thing, because you are fooling yourself about your reality. And really creating a different reality, or choosing to participate in a different reality of your own making. So as you're doing it, then you're also empowering yourself.
My goodness. And through that process, and well, first of all, your sense of humor has to help you tremendously.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I mean,
all I hear to begin with, I shouldn't say all I hear, but two of the key ingredients that I hear about your success, if you will, are work ethic and sense of humor.
Oh, amen.
Right?
All day long. Absolutely.
All day long. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you help people that find you in the SickBiz community? Do you help them with those kinds of things, or do they come to the table with a work ethic and a sense of humor, or how do you work with these fellow entrepreneurs?
It's like we tell our kids, right? Everybody's special, so nobody is.
Sure.
But there's some truth to that. This just happens to be your thing. Other people have different things. Other people have chronic relationship issues. Other people have other physical disabilities, maybe not disabilities, but physical symptoms that can affect them. They maybe have cluster migraine headaches, but they still have to find a way of work.
Yeah.
Other people fall down and break their leg skiing, and then they have, a bum leg, and they can't do this or that. This just happens to be your thing. And coming down from a point of, why am I affected? Who am I to be affected to? Everybody has something.
For sure.
How we manage and how we thrive has to do with our choices. So the very first thing, and when I talk to people, I tell them, I'm not telling you about your own power or your choice to make a decision to disempower you or invalidate you. It's exactly the opposite. You can have your feelings, you can have your emotions, but you can still make a choice. So
you help them give themselves permission.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. And I really try to be as prescriptive and actionable as possible, because I think it's one thing to read somebody's blog story and say, well, that's a great story. Wonderful. It stayed with me, and that just gave me the warm fuzzies. It's another, right, to take it and say, this is the story, this is what I learned, and these are the actionable steps that you can take to create a different reality for yourself. So, for example, if you're feeling down in the dumps, and that is a very shallow comparison to what's happening when life is just shaking you by the lapels and showing you, zero expectation of what's out there. You have no idea. But you still have the control of your actions. And I use this analogy a lot with my kids. I would say, okay, I want you to go do the dishes. And they'd say, I don't want to go do the dishes. And I would say, well, I don't really care how you feel about the dishes. You need to you need to do them.
Yeah. You need to step up.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to nurture your business. You need to do these things that you know will lead to your success, because logistically, you know what you need to do. Are you choosing to not do them because you're choosing to stay immersed in your emotions and allowing yourself to be crippled from moving forward?
And when you have an opportunity like that, it's got to be, at some level, we all have our own comfort level, for lack of a better term, right? We're in this deep depression, we're having these huge physical maladies, whatever it is, and for whatever reason, that's our comfort level. And to get out of that comfort level is hard. It takes a lot of work, and to get to do what you're talking about, to step out and build your confidence that you can do better with these other steps.
Yes. And it's one step. I talk a lot about the one step. Whatever that happens to be, it's one step. So, for example, probably 5 months ago, I went gluten-free. And other people were saying, well, drink more water and make sure you get more sleep. And I said, don't talk to me.
Exactly. Oh, my God. Don't you love it when people put their stuff on you?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
When I would go to the gym, I joined a gym, and I thought, I'm just going to do this. And I worked with a trainer, and he said, I want you to focus on one thing. Do one thing, because you have over a 90% chance of succeeding with one thing. When you add another thing that you need to do, you drop those percentages by over half.
Wow.
And so if you just do that one thing, you do it really well. Just do that one thing. That's a really great thing to do. So then I was gluten-free for probably 3 months. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, all right, I need to exercise. So I bought a little exercise bike, and it's a recumbent one. It sits in the living room. We put it in the living room, so I'll actually use it instead of putting it
instead of hanging clothes on it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. You have to put it where you're going to be. And sorry, but your interior design be damned.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So, and then I am working on getting good at that. How long can I do it for? Not very long, but I can do it every day, probably.
Yeah.
So we focus on one thing. And when people get stuck,
that's part one of our interview with Hilary Jastrum. More on SickBiz.com coming up in part two.
Your 20-minute podcast with David Brower has been brought to you by Audible. You can listen to any of David's podcasts anywhere podcasts can be found, including iHeartRadio, the Spotify mobile app, and at davidbrowervo.com/your20-minute podcast. Until next time, thanks for listening.